Topic number two is this
Lofty
article in
goals.
Parade. Now, I've never heard of Parade. The only reason I even know this article
Me neither.
exists is because of the fact that E3, one of the most well known corporations in the entire world of gaming, one of the greatest entities in all of gaming, tweeted this article out. The article is entitled, as you can see, The Games That We Play, 25 Online Games That Women Enjoy. We're not going to worry about the author. That's not important right now. We're going to worry about the content of this article, which opens with some data about the fact that there are just as many, if not more, women playing games in certain capacities than men. That it is, in fact, a pastime that a lot of women enjoy. Right? That it can be a distraction from a job, that it can be fun to compete, engage with friends, and all these things. Now, there is this part in this opening paragraph that says, and I quote, while online games have no gender attached to them, and many women enjoy everything from a puzzle quest to a sports match or fight oriented game, there are some games that female players tend to gravitate towards. The author then goes on to claim that they surveyed game developers, pro gamers, and everyday players to bring you this list of 25 free, very important, free online games for women. Problems before we get into the games that are listed. One, if you go to the tweet that was used to collect survey participants, because it was an actual survey disseminated as far as I can find, there
Wait,
were
leave
no
it to a sociologist to talk about methods
bro.
on stream.
Get
Go ahead,
in
go ahead,
here.
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Um,
Go ahead.
the the methods, right, were faulty. They like they. I need to bring it back so you can see just the anguish in my face. You can't say that you surveyed these people and have proof through your paper trail, that is digital paper, that there were no people. There was no one. No one really truly was committed to giving you information. Very few, right? So already your survey respondent pool is super limited, which means that you cannot have significant
What
findings of
was
any
their
flavor.
what was their end? What was their end?
Bro, if there was one, I couldn't find it, and that's the problem. Like I tried. Um, if it's in here, I'd be impressed
I
to
didn't
find
see it.
out, but
I
I
didn't
didn't
see
see
where
it,
it
and
was.
that's that again. Like I think this is one of the things that comes with being a sociologist. Like whenever I look at data presented to me, I'm like, so show me the stuff. Like I need the graphs, I need the source, I need to see how you collected your data, how it was organized, sorted, what your regressions look like. Like give me all the details,
Right.
right? My brain starts, tingling. So already from jump, it's suspect. But then it starts to get into the types of games that are free and interesting to the female audience, right? Sudoku, misspelled by the way. We're not even gonna fuck with that, right? Candy Crush, a Harry Potter game, Animal Crossing, right? Which is popular with everybody. That's not a women only thing by any capacity. Animal Crossing is a fucking phenomenon and also not free. So you already broke the rules. Like
Yeah.
you have to pay for both a Switch and the game to play Animal Crossing. Okay,
Mhm.
so problems there. Overwatch, which
Also not free.
yeah, right. I think it became free at some point, maybe once. I don't know if it still is or not, but like it definitely wasn't when it launched, right? And being an Overwatch player myself, you as well, other of our friends in the chat, right? Like, yeah, had free weekends. Okay, so the game is still, it needs to be purchased, right?
Yeah.
Again, quoting the article itself, the writer states, Overwatch has become extremely popular with ladies who game. Women like it since it has a list of female heroes to portray, giving them the chance to hold their own amidst the boys. One of the female respondents that was part of this said it's so much fun and very forgiving until you start playing competitive. Now, issues with these statements. One, the fuck does female characters have to do with the game being more inviting? I thought we were saying that games aren't gendered. Isn't that how this article opened? Weren't we saying that online games don't necessarily have a gendered attachment to them? I like playing the female characters. Sombra remains one of my favorite characters of all time. I love her.
Memorial Me.
Right, like I think she's a fantastic character, well designed, super fun, really interesting, all that good stuff. Right, like So to say that women are drawn to Overwatch because there are lots of ladies in the cast is very problematic because it plays into a lot of very aggressive stereotypes about gendered binaries and the ways in which people can see themselves in spaces that they want to occupy, right? Like if you can't find a character that looks like you don't want to get in there, right? Like that seems pretty pretty problematic because by and large a lot of the games that I play, characters don't look at all like me. They never really have, right? Like when we started playing Warzone, I played as Ghost because he has a nice mask on, and Ghost is fun. And now I play as Iskra, who happens to be a bald Russian woman, which definitely doesn't look anything like me, and can't really get rid of this, right? Like, so how can you use that as the basis for an argument that those are the things that make those types of games alluring to those players, right? Another example of this, and then Reese, whenever you want to jump in, feel free. But
Yeah.
Just Dance is on here, right? I play that with my spouse. The game is fun. Like, you don't have to be, like Nastia Nas or somebody who's got, crazy hit movement to enjoy a game like that. I like to dance around my living room. It's fun. The songs are dope. I know them.
This bad reference,
right?
Nastia.
Whatever. But you see what I'm saying? Like the problem that becomes inherent with this is that like some games are inviting to specific audiences because of a very specific gendered criteria that is stereotypical, and some games aren't. And there's a lot of deep-seated problems with that because we're not thinking critically about one, the nature of the gaming industry, problems that we've had in that industry with who's been allowed to access it, who's been allowed to participate, who gets to profit in those spaces, right?
Yeah.
I can objectively argue that the internet, in all of its capacity and greatness and all of its faults, is a white heterosexually masculine space. Point blank, period. Because those are the people who helped construct it and maintain most of its barriers. So whether or not people want to admit it, that's where that comes from. So there's some merit to arguing that your digital existence is mediated through that lens. However, when you reduce people's ability to enjoy and consume content to their bare bones, socially constructed identifiers, gender, race, sexuality, ability, right? Can you only play certain games because up until I think it was 2 years ago, there wasn't an accessibility controller available on things like Xbox, right? Like that's pretty fucked to say like I love this game but I can't play it because they don't make a tool that I can use to enjoy the game. You don't want to play the game because there happens to be a differently abled character, and you want to play it because you like it, but you don't have access to it. Right? So to conflate these sorts of relationships with social identifiers is honestly, to be frank, bullshit.
Yeah, it feels like it makes these like flattening assumptions about how representation matters, because I think representation very much matters in gaming, in filmmaking. I mean, we were talking about this the other night. We were talking about it in the context of comics and sort of like the politics of writing like bona fide, interesting, amazing, like queer or women characters, and heroes and villains into those stories, as opposed to just saying, well, this is like a gender bend of this already existing character, and sort of piggybacking on their existing fandom rather than taking the hard road of actually crafting a compelling and interesting queer or women character. It just feels like this sort of the article's take in some ways feels like flattening of representation, right? Like if there are women, then women will come, right? And I think about all of those, like those fighting games, and I can't remember which one it was. It's from like the OG Xbox, where like the graphics, like the physics engine for the breasts, was just
Dead or Alive.
Dead or Alive, and it was just absurd, right? And there was a whole roster of women characters, but they were not designed, right, to appeal to like women players, I don't think. And so I think it's just like it flattens out difference, it flattens out representation. And I think the other piece that for me is really troubling is it's very clear that this was written by somebody who exists outside of gaming space. Because is Sudoku a game? Yes. Does Sudoku have any clout or community in gaming culture? No, no, not at all. Same thing with like Candy Crush and the fucking Kardashian game that was in there. And so I think that, like, when I think about women streamers on a platform like this on Twitch, those are not the games that they're playing. Those are not the activities that they're partaking in to build a viewership and a following. And of the 25 games, the only four that felt to me like being of repute is Animal Crossing, Overwatch, Sims 4, and Tetris. Everything else was just kind of like casino style, pay to win, like mobile game with no community, no cachet in gaming culture, and coming from devs who are really looking to just like mine people's pockets. Which isn't to say that like devs in like the spaces that we walk through um, don't also do that. And so I feel like the question is compelling to me, right? Like, what are the 25 games that have like that draw the biggest playership from women? Um, but this is just so flattening, and I think like it 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 obfuscates, I think, as much as it reveals, which I think is really really frustrating, because and we've run into women players in all of the games that we've played, and it's always interesting to pick their brains in those moments when we're running a raid or trying to like push the cart, where we talk about yeah, Cassie's in chat. She's like, this article had so much potential and they killed it. Like, I would love to hear the experience, and we've talked about this before with Scotty and Corey 1,000 years ago when Corey, wasn't like dead to everybody, about like women playing Mercy, right? And that whole nexus of things. Like, I want to read that article. I would love to read an article about women who are DPS mains and queue into Overwatch and join team chat, and what reception they get when they're playing McCree or Ashe, and they're like, oh fuck, a chick is playing the DPS, god damn it, we're gonna lose, right? Like all that fucking nonsense. And so or something like, I mean, you wrote your undergraduate thesis on Borderlands, right? I think Borderlands pushes so many envelopes and so many boundaries around like how players relate to characters, and how it is that we make compelling queer and women characters that are fun and desirable to play regardless of how you identify. And so I think Cassie hits the nail on the head. Like, I think the questions that I think the article was likely looking to answer are good and important and interesting, and they totally fucking missed the mark.
Yeah.
And it's clear to me, I mean, I'm not even gonna say the first part. It's just clear to me that this is a person who is not themselves a gamer. I don't know that any of like the gamer friends that we have that are here would look at Candy Crush and see it as something other than like what you do to waste time while you're taking a shit at work.
Yeah. And I think, just by doing some digging, I think you're right that the person like doesn't have any sort of like gaming acumen in any capacity. And the other thing I noticed just by kind of digging through the person who wrote it and the credentials is that they are a freelance writer who's written for other periodicals like the New York Times, as well as Men's Health and Playboy, which leads me to believe that the way in which they approach writing tends to pander to a male audience, which comes with its own set of baggage and problems when you start to write an article in the same way that this one was written, right? And one of the things that it also kind of glosses over and tries to hide in the background of the way that it approaches the subject is the difference between casual gaming versus competitive gaming, right? And the quote that was taken from that one woman who was talking about Overwatch and how it's fun until you play competitive, right? Because there are those interactions with the Mercy mains and those other people that we've come across who are held accountable for their gendered expression in that moment that someone makes an assumption that they're not capable of competitive gaming, because the assumption is that, as per the list that we saw in this article, they are only in the business of enjoying casual gaming in its full capacity, right? Things that are not time intensive, that do not require a lot of meta analysis, that don't require you to be intense in a way that has been predisposed to be conceived of as masculine, right? I remember not too long ago, I think earlier this year, Fran, who's an incredible Overwatch player, got a lot of flack because she put together a tournament team for like a side tournament that Overwatch put it together, and her team dominated, absolutely slaughtered. People were like, this chick had no business being on a winning team, and they're like, she got carried, and she was like, actually, I put the team together, I recruited all the players that I thought would be the best. I competed, and we fucking crushed it. Like, there wasn't a, oh, please help me, I want to win this tournament. It was a, I think that we can all play together as a really good team and win this
Yep.
tournament, right?
Yep.
But she was held accountable despite the fact that she's a well-known face in the industry,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
She's a partner streamer for the Atlanta Reign. Like, she's been part of Overwatch since launch. Like, people know who she is, and yet she still got all this bullshit
Mhm.
because there is an assumption that casual gaming is the only space that women are allowed to occupy. It happens in the fighting game community too. I don't know if Reese is still
Right.
here, but a lot of the female gamers
What
that
up, Reese?
exist in the fighting game community, especially when a lot of these sexual harassment allegations were cropping up earlier this summer, right? That ended up
Mhm.
canceling a lot of the major tournaments. They're like, this space is not welcoming to us. One, because people are
Yeah.
gross, and two, because people don't think that we can compete on the same level as other players because they don't
Yeah.
see us as competitive. They
Yeah.
see that gendered expression and assume a level of, like, I don't know, like inherent softness to it that doesn't really
Mhm.
have any basis or truth to
Yeah.
it. Um,
Yeah.
all because there's a need to kind of sort of protect the spaces that you exist in. I remember, Aries, I don't know if you remember this, but we were doing a quest in Monster Hunter a long time ago, and we put out the call for whoever could help us slay the monster at the time. And this woman joins in, and she absolutely 1000% carried both of us. Like, not a joke. We were doing our part. We were being as good of hunters as we can be, but she was absolutely carrying, like, hands down. And we were both like, "Oh my god, you are the greatest Monster Hunter player we've ever seen. Please don't leave us." But it was a random. Yeah, dude, it was incredible. And I was like, I've been playing Monster Hunter on PSP like since back in the day, and I was like, I just got shown things I've never seen. I'm very very
Yeah.
impressed, and I would like for you to be my friend and show me the way. Um,
Yeah.
but like, that's not an interaction that most people have because of the kind of the nature of the space and how complicated it is. Um, I want to get some of these comments.
Yeah. Big for little. Yeah. I've seen women beat dudes, and then he tries to offer advice. Yeah, dude. It happens all the fucking time. And the other thing too, to Cassie's point, there's a lot of good stuff that I think was sparked by her comment. But like the idea of curating a list of, like, these are the orgs, these are the clans, these are the guilds that are really hospitable places for women to be gamers. And so, like, if you want to play WoW, hey, this is a guild that's like gonna let you rock out and is gonna like help you be great at the game, um, and is not gonna fucking berate you for being a woman in that space. I think that there's utility. I've never seen a list like that. I've never seen a list that celebrates, um, like, the DEI work that's happening within gaming. I think in part because so little of it is actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like, it, it feels. I mean, honestly, and I'm not a woman, right? Like, I've never been a woman, and so my comment isn't meant to speak for women, but I feel like I look at this list, and I see what it's comprised of, and it just feels offensive. I have an advisee who is one of the most gangster gamers ever, and she's a throwback, like a serious throwback. I'm talking about, like, help me get past a part in Super Metroid I was stuck on throwback.
Mm-hmm.
This is a kid who, when I do like waffles and breakfast in my apartment, pulls up, throws her boo on her phone for a little FaceTime, and just crushes Super Nintendo. And she's a completionist. That's her thing, right? For her, it's, I'm competing against myself. I'm not looking to rack up kills. I'm not looking to clear raids. I want to be a completionist. And she's a Zelda junkie, um, which to me is like so impressive given her acumen in like past iterations of Zelda before she was an idea in the brains of her parents. Um, and I think about her when I read this list. I feel like she discussed it. She'd be like, this list in no way represents my interests or how I move through these spaces. And I think, to your point about like competitive gaming being sort of like the highest echelon, I think I get why people think of it that way, right? Because the metrics are very clear and very numerical, right? Like, Spring Splits won, ESL's won, how many Evo titles you have and how many games. But there are other metrics of gaming. That's, I think, part of the beauty of gaming is like a hobby is that there are other metrics of success, of expertise that exist outside of just your kill death ratio.
Yep.
And I think if we can lay down our insistence that like you're being a competitive gamer is proof positive of your having a place in this space, and thinking about all of the other metrics of success and all of the other things that are exciting. Like I can't speed run anything. There's no game I've ever speed run, and I know that there are gamers who that's what they do. They just speed run fucking games. That is a skill that I don't have. That is an expertise and an acumen that I don't have. You know, people beating Ganon without the fucking Master Sword and crazy shit like that.
Yeah.
And I think about my advisee, and like she's an excellent gamer. She's an excellent gamer. And when I was stuck in Breath of the Wild, she was the kid who I was like, "Yo, meet me at lunch." And so like I think ultimately though, I think one of the things that we've not said, or maybe like not articulated explicitly and just assumed implicitly, is that it is hard to be a woman in this space. And this is, to your point earlier, like such a fucking toxic, misogynistic space, and it's alienating. And I think and maybe this is how we transition into this next piece. I think it is so hard to make inroads as a woman. At least that's my sense from the women gamers in my life and the articles that I've read and pieces produced by women in this space. And then holding that space, holding ground once you're there, is all the more challenging. It fucking sucks. It's shitty. And the thing is that like it's also hard not to be complicit too, right? Because like we spent 7 hours playing Call of Duty, like the most fucking shitty dude bro fucking game
on the planet
ever.
Yep.
On the planet, right? Like, and I'm a 220-pound man. No one's calling me a nigger to my face.
Yep.
The only place I ever get called that is on fucking Call of Duty. And, and to be clear, right? Like, if you pulled 19-year-old Reese's receipts, it's not looking too nice, So I'm not saying that I'm angelic either, but it's shitty, man. That's not even like a provocative or interesting fucking note to make, other than
that it's terrible.
the
No,
obvious.
I mean it's why I'm doing the research